Hello, this is our video lecture on Chapter 2. Our learning objectives for Chapter 2 uh, are understanding the causes of interest in corporate entrepreneurship, how to introduce entrepreneurial mode of managing firm and distinguishing it from the traditional model, and how to provide a scale for capturing the extent to which management adopts entrepreneurial or traditional behaviors. So let's look at the first one. Okay, understanding the causes of interest in corporate entrepreneurship. So if you look on page 34, there's three different things. There's social, cultural, and business levels. So on page 34, it has the cultural level, on the social level, there's an increasing interest in doing your own thing and doing it on one's own time. Individuals who believe strongly in their own talents frequently desire to create something of their own, and this creates freedom. Many people want to start their own businesses because they don't like corporate structure, they don't like to be managed, they want to have their own freedom, create their own thing, and then say that they created it. So it has a sense of feeling of accomplishment. Okay? Now on a cultural level, if you turn to page 39, it has a brief introduction of cultural. So culture also distinguishes entrepreneurial and traditionally managed firms. Firm with an entrepreneurial orientation toward culture encourages employees to generate ideas, experiment, and engage in other tasks that might produce creative output. For example, when I worked with 3M in Austin, they actually have a culture there that is stealing up to 20% of your time to work on your own projects. For example, you may have a project that you have to do that involves some sort of experiment, let's say with adhesives. And you're a chemist and you're putting together different chemicals. And so once you've put the chemicals together, then you have to apply them and monitor the adhesiveness of these different chemicals to see which one sticks stronger or doesn't stick as much, and so on and so forth. Well, this takes time for observation, and many times you just have to check on it every so often, every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, however long it is. In between those checks, you could then be doing something that you want to do, a project that you're interested in. Again, it's for 3M, but it's something that you're interested in more than these adhesives and monitoring the stickiness of them. So in essence, you're billing your time towards the observation of these chemicals that you were instructed to do. But since you actually are doing nothing but sitting there in between your documentation every 15 or 30 minutes, however often it is, you could actually then, instead of sitting there and just staring at them, watching grass grow, in other words, that type of thing, you're off doing your own thing and just set an alarm or something so that you don't forget to then go every so often, however many minutes between intervals, and check on them. Okay, computer software people also do this when a system has to go through its courses, and you might be sitting there for 30, 40, 50 minutes while it's doing its thing, and you have nothing to do. Well, at that point in time, while you're just waiting for the computer program to run through its processes, you could be then doing your own type of programming on something that you find interesting. Okay? So in that type of culture, they actually promote that and want you to then find that in your own way. Okay, so that would be the cultural level. And the business level, then, if you go back to the original page of 34, it goes through corporate entrepreneurship is one method of stimulating and then capitalizing on individuals in an organization who think that something can be done differently and better. Okay, so on a business level, you're saying that we want people to not only do the different areas that we would like, we also want them to be creative and do things that we haven't even thought about, and go from there. And then allow them the time to do that, as well as promote it, reward it, and things like that. Okay. Um, and it actually has them numbered here on page 35. Management distinction from traditional management is strategic orientation, commitment to opportunity, which I just explained, commitment of resources. So you don't have to have them document the resources that they're using. You can give them a slush fund type thing of so much money and say you just use it for whatever you would like to use that money for as far as resources go. In the chemist example, it would be to buy supplies or chemicals that you'd want to then combine and try and create something new. Commitment, control of the resource management structure, rewarding, as I had said, growth and entrepreneurial culture. Okay, so if we go on to the next slide, how to introduce entrepreneurial mode. Well, if you go to 37, it goes through entrepreneurial orientation towards commitment of resources. It goes into more in depth about the commitment of resources. And it says that they create the resources in order to test the waters. Okay? I'm sorry, commitment to test the waters. So the difference between an entrepreneurial management style and traditional management style as far as commitment goes of resources, it would be that in entrepreneurial, they do a little bit at a time. You just test the waters. For example, going back to 3M, they created an adhesive that did the exact opposite of what they were mandated to do. The mandate that came down from above, from the executive level, was to create an adhesive that would never give way. So once you put the adhesive on, it would stick the two pieces together and they could never ever come apart. Well, towards the beginning of this process, they created an adhesive that did the exact opposite. It could be peeled off, put back on, peeled off, put back on, and when it peeled off, it didn't damage what was underneath it. So it was the exact opposite. Now, one of the people that created this mistake, supposedly was a mistake because it was the exact opposite of what they were supposed to do, used it to mark pages in the Bible for when they went to church that Sunday and they were to give the scripture lesson. They just put the adhesive on a piece of paper, put the paper right on the scripture reading that they were supposed to read, and then once they were finished reading it, they could peel it off and it didn't damage the Bible. Okay. When they did that, they realized that this might be something that other people could use. So the CEO took a box full of samples of this to a conference, and he started giving them away and had on there how to reorder them. And he included a paper of how to reorder these pieces of paper with the adhesive on it. And of course, while they're talking, he explained how to use it and all that good stuff. And then when he got back to his office after the conference was over, this was a few-day conference type thing in a different location, the orders poured in on this. And that's how he knew that this was going to be a success. So he just tested the waters, didn't commit a lot of resources just to make a few boxes of these samples. And then once the orders came in, knew it was going to be a success, and then launched it. And of course, that became Post-it notes. So Post-it notes was nothing more than a mistake that an entrepreneurial-minded person thought, well, it might be a mistake from what we were supposed to do, but it seems like it's a pretty good idea, and then tested the waters on it. As traditional management style would do just the opposite. They would do some research study on it, and then they might do a test market in one specific location that might cost millions of dollars, like McDonald's would do to introduce a new burger, a new product. And then if it went over well, then they would launch it nationwide. And they commit so much resources that it's almost impossible to go backwards at that point in time. So in the entrepreneurial testing the waters. It's very small. You don't have a lot of resources. And actually, to control the resources, you actually borrow the resources from another source instead of having them from your own. As I said, stealing time, stealing resources. And stealing is in quotes, of course, because the company wants you to do this to be entrepreneurial. So you're just taking from one area and trying to experiment on it, something that you're interested in. Okay, and then management rewards this, and they create an organic method, organic structure that is also on page 37. Organic structure has fewer layers of bureaucracy between top management and the customer, and typically it has multiple informal communication channels, and that's what promotes the entrepreneurial style versus the traditional. How to provide scale for capturing the extent to which management adopts entrepreneurial or traditional behaviors is on page 39. And the scaling is great desire to expand the size of the firm at a rapid pace. So once you get an idea, like again, going to the Post-it notes, he got the orders in from these other CEOs that were at the conference. Then they immediately started scaling up and creating an entire production for Post-it notes. They didn't wait on it. They didn't sit on it. They didn't do any more testing. It just was, as soon as the orders started pouring in, it was done. Okay. And then you just scale up and go. I just saw this morning that Volkswagen is creating a new battery factory in Tennessee, Chattanooga, Tennessee, that's supposed to be in full operation by 2022. And so if you look at that, they're basically saying that they're going to switch over to battery-operated cars on a huge scale as soon as this factory is complete. Tesla created a factory in less than 1 year in China this past year and started selling the new electric cars in China from this Chinese factory within 12 months. Again, once it looks like it's going to be a demand product, something that is going to be a good seller, something that is profitable. There's no time wasted. You just scale up and go. Okay, and so that's the essence, the learning objectives of Chapter 2.